There's something I've been thinking about that I don't hear people talk about much. And I'm not saying this to sound too deep or spiritual or anything like that. I'm saying it because I think a lot of people are missing something that's incredibly simple, and that could actually change how they experience their life. And it's this idea of talking to God, but not in some formal, perfect way. Just talking like you would to a friend. Now look, I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm not trying to convince you of anything, but I do think there's something almost nobody talks about when it comes to this. Because here's the thing, most people go through their entire day with constant noise in their head, notifications, opinions, expectations, pressure. But almost no one takes a moment to just sit down, even for a few minutes, and actually speak honestly, not perform, not filter. Just say what's on their mind. And when you do that, when you just sit there, maybe at night, maybe when everything's quiet, and you just start talking, something shifts. You start saying things you didn't even realize you were holding in. You start being honest in a way you usually aren't, about what you want, about what you're afraid of, about what you're unsure about. And it's not about hearing a voice back or getting some instant answer. It's about creating a space where you're finally not pretending. Because think about it, most of your day is spent being some version of yourself for other people. But in that moment, when it's just you, there's nothing to prove. And over time, something interesting starts to happen. You start to understand yourself more clearly. You start to notice what actually matters to you. And that's where it connects to everything else. Because when you're more honest with yourself, it becomes harder to ignore what you actually want. The goals you've been putting off. The things you keep saying you'll maybe do one day. And I'm not saying this fixes everything. It doesn't. But it gives you something that most people don't have anymore. Clarity. And once you have that, it becomes a lot harder to keep living a life that doesn't feel like yours. So if there's one simple thing to try, it's this. At the end of the day, just sit down for a few minutes and talk. No script, no pressure. Just be honest. Because you might realize that what you've been looking for, direction, clarity, motivation, was always on the other side of just being real for a moment. And that might be the thing that finally pushes you to go after what you've been holding back on. Now, before I go any further in this video, I just want to give you a little bit of context on who I am and why I even care about something like this. I'm not a pastor. I'm not someone who has everything figured out. I'm just someone who went through a long period of time feeling completely lost in my own head. From the outside, everything looked normal, but internally, it felt like there was constant noise, constant overthinking, constant second guessing. And for a long time, I didn't really have a way to deal with that. So what I started doing, without really thinking too much about it, was just talking, not out loud, not in some structured way, just in my head, at night, during the day, whenever things felt heavy, just saying what I was thinking, what I was stressed about, what I didn't understand, what I actually wanted. And I didn't even realize it at first, but over time, that became one of the only moments in my day where I was completely honest. No filters, no performance, no trying to sound a certain way. And that's really why I want to make videos like this, because I know I'm not the only one who spends most of their time stuck in their head trying to figure things out, but never actually slowing down enough to process anything. So if any of this even slightly relates to you, then this channel is basically just going to be a place where I talk about this kind of stuff. Real thoughts, real experiences, no pretending. And maybe through that, you can take something from it and apply it to your own life. Because I don't think people realize how powerful it is to just stop and be honest for a minute. Now, let me actually explain what I mean by all of this. Because this isn't really about religion in the way most people think. It's about connection. When you take even 5 minutes to sit in silence and just talk without distractions, you start to notice things. You start to notice what's actually bothering you, what you've been avoiding, what you keep pushing off, and more importantly, what you actually want. Because most people don't lack motivation. They lack clarity. And when you don't have clarity, it's really easy to stay stuck, to keep delaying things, to keep telling yourself, I'll figure it out later. But those quiet moments, those honest conversations, they force you to confront confront that. And yeah, that can be uncomfortable because sometimes you realize you've been ignoring something important. Sometimes you realize you're not on the path you thought you were. But at the same time, that's where everything starts to change. Because once you're honest with yourself, it becomes a lot harder to keep doing things that don't feel right. It becomes harder to ignore the things you actually care about. And that's where this connects to your goals. The things you say you want to do, the ideas you keep thinking about, the life you imagine for yourself but never fully commit to. Most people never go after those things, not because they can't, but because they never get clear enough to actually try. They stay distracted, they stay comfortable, they stay in noise, so they never have to face that moment of truth. But if you can get used to sitting in that silence, being honest, actually listening to yourself, you start to build something most people don't have: direction. And once you have that, it becomes a lot easier to actually move, to take action, to start, to try, not because someone told you to, but because you finally know why you want to. So no, I'm not saying this is some perfect solution, but I do think it's a starting point, something simple that almost nobody does anymore. Just taking a few minutes talking, being real, and actually listening, because that might be the thing that reconnects you with yourself and gives you the push to finally go after what you've been holding back on. So that's pretty much what I want this channel to be. Just honest conversations like this, about figuring things out, about getting out of your own head, about trying to actually live a life that feels real. If that's something you want to hear more of, if any part of this actually meant something to you, then just stick around. I'm going to keep making videos like this, and I genuinely like to hear what you think about all of this in the comments, because I don't think this is something only a few people feel. I think a lot of people are just not talking about it. Alright, that's everything for this one. Take care out there. I'll see you in the next video.